The Trilogy Podcast with Vin and Scott. 3 movies, 2 men, 1 podcast.
There's a man going round taking names, and he decides who to free and who to blame. Everybody won't be treated all the same. There'll be a golden ladder reaching down when the man comes around.
Phil, just hold still.
What do you...
Phil,
is that a needle?
Phil, hold still.
Yes,
Scott,
it's a needle. Obviously, it's a needle.
Phil,
What's in there?
Scott, grab his shoulders.
Look, Phil, it's very simple, okay? I simply have smelted some metal, and I would like to inject it onto your bones. I mean,
That's
what
not
is
how it works.
We want to see.
We watch the movies,
Right.
okay?
I don't have a
we
healing
know how it works.
It's going to work,
I don't
Phil.
have a healing.
Can we just try it?
Just inject him already, for fuck's sake.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because we're the Trilogy Podcast, the only podcast in the universe devoted strictly to trilogies. No reboots, no straight to cable. We're bringing you facts, debate, history, and more. To hell with the movie, if they made 4.
All right, now I'm just going to plunge this into you.
Okay, stop it.
Oh, you know what?
Aim for his eye.
The metal is cooled now.
Yeah.
You ruined it, Phil.
I ruined it.
A whole
it,
pot
Phil.
of smelted metal gone to waste.
I watched Scott smelt all day. Scott, I don't know if we've given enough of a hint as to the trilogy we're doing this time around, but why don't you tell the good folks?
Why, it's the Wolverine trilogy.
Wolverine. We are trying to make Phil into Wolverine. As always, I'm Vin.
And I'm Scott.
And joining us today is Phil. We bring Phil in when we do anything that's superhero related or horror related. It is Phil's expertise, and we're glad to have him around today.
Excited to be here.
Great to see you, Phil. Generally, he's our field correspondent, but he's in the studio today. All right, guys, so this is pretty exciting. We're doing the Wolverine trilogy, and there's a lot of reasons we're doing this one now. And I think the primary reason is the fact that a couple of months ago, Deadpool came out, and Wolverine made, spoiler alert, Wolverine made a huge appearance in the 3rd Deadpool movie.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
So-
it was called Deadpool and Wolverine.
Not really a spoiler at all. I pretty much reveal it in the title. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah.
But the idea is we wanted to sort of talk about Wolverine and break apart his history before injecting him into a brand new trilogy into Deadpool.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because if you think about it, the X-Men films, 7 films, the Wolverine trilogy is a spin-off from those.
Sure.
And the Deadpool trilogy is a spin-off from the Wolverine trilogy.
Sure.
You know, we've done a lot of superheroes in the past. In fact, we just did fucking Blade a couple of episodes ago.
That's
so we're
right.
high on superheroes, you know?
Yes.
But it's important that if we're talking about a brand new trilogy like Deadpool, to get a sense of where this guy came from, what movies he came from, you know, Wolverine,
Yeah.
you know, and how these things are all related. It's always kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning that Hugh Jackman's birthday was a couple of days ago, the day that we actually are taping this.
And to think, it was only because Russell Crowe was like, "Nah, I'm busy."
Why do they always try to cast Australian? And even in the first episode of the animated series,
That's right.
they cast an Australian actor. You couldn't hire a Canadian?
I believe Paul Hogan was originally going to play Wolverine.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
He's
and
a-
that's a knife. And that's a knife. And that's a knife.
It's a very old
Here's another
man.
one. Here's another knife.
So I'm pretty excited about this one. You know, whenever we do a superhero trilogy, whether we like it or not, whether I like it or not, whatever, we always have spirited debate. It's always a lot of cool connections, a lot of cool information. So I'm eager to jump into this one.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get started. And that is with a good friend called Trilogy Bot.
Does he have to, though?
No, Phil.
Because he... Okay.
This running gag
That's
of
fine.
you hating Trilogy Bot has
I don't hate him.
It ran its course like 5 episodes
I know.
ago.
I don't
Phil.
hate him.
Okay.
You know what? I'm
okay.
gonna take a little nap. I'm gonna take a little nap while he goes, and nothing bad's gonna happen.
Great, Phil. Trilogy Bot is a robot we have created to tell us what category this trilogy falls into. And so, our robotic friend, please tell us.
Wolverine is an army of one trilogy. In this kind of trilogy, we track the adventures of one man over the course of 3 films. Each movie is about his quest and character. All superhero films are army of one trilogies. Too bad Phil will never star in one of these, unless his superhero name is Captain Fuckface.
Ah!
Oh, sorry. I had a nightmare.
Phil,
You just punched that counter.
you're destroying my home.
I'm so sorry.
I mean-
it was supposed to be a little nap.
I mean, the expensive studio that we record in.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
But Trilogy Bot is 100% correct. This is indeed an army of one trilogy. Our rule, Scott, as you know, is if we're doing a superhero trilogy, it's an army of one. You know, from Captain America to Spider-Man to the Dark Knight.
Right.
This is one guy's story, okay? Especially Wolverine, who doesn't just travel from film to film, but from era of time to era of time. Like
Right.
huge amounts of time go by in his story.
Yep.
And it's still centered around him and his struggles in particular. The Wolverine trilogy, though, does have a lot going on in the plot.
a lot of plot.
So you have to weave this garment for us so that we can put it on and enjoy it and feel warm. Are you ready to do that?
You mean in the bit I do? My
Yeah.
little
Scott's plots.
Scott's plots, my
No.
little contribution that we. Okay, yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
bit. It's a huge part of the podcast.
Yeah, well, no.
So just jump right into the plots.
Yeah,
There's nothing that needs to be
all
done.
right, you know, it's something needs to be done.
throwing the
People
word
need to
bit
hear
around.
about the plots.
Just go into it.
Plots. Talking about Wolverine. Scott's gonna tell you the plot of Wolverine. And there's one movie. No, wait, there's two movies. Oh shit, there's three movies. It's a trilogy. And we're doing the plots, and it's Scott's and Wolverine. And we're the plots of the Scott's are telling you the plot of the Wolverine. And Wolverine. Scott's plots.
Was that from the cartoon?
What cartoon? Alrighty, so without further ado, this is Scott's Plots. What I like to do here is I break down the plots of these movies with no character names, very few details, very bare-boned, if you will.
Adamantium bone.
Yes, but basically, so this is a nice recap if you haven't seen the movies in a while, or if you've never seen the movies and you just want to listen to the episode because you just fucking love us, this will work for you too. So why don't we start it all off with the first movie? And it, of course, was confusingly titled X-Men Origins Wolverine.
2009.
In the mid-19th century, a young boy in bed hears a gunshot and finds his father murdered by his mother's lover. The boy becomes very angry, and bone claws emerge from his hands. The boy with claws kills his mother's lover only for him to reveal in his dying breath that he is actually the boy with claws' father. The boy runs into the woods, where his half-brother finds him and tells the boy with claws that they have to stick together.
You got some real family strife here in the in the backwoods of Canada.
You say what you will about the circle of violence, but the circle of sideburns that's about to ensue.
It's a time of cholera and turkey shoots. People catch a sniffle and they just die.
They seemed like they were kind of well off.
Well, he had a fever, and then they're like, when everything happens, and the fever's just forgotten. He's in the woods, he's running around. Seconds before he's in bed, and he's like, "You're dying of a fever."
Well, I suppose it was healed, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe they could have said a line like that, like, "My fever, it's gone."
Yeah.
And then, like,
how did he
well,
have
I don't know how.
How did he
but-
have one in the first place?
The half-brother finds him and tells the boy with claws that they have to stick together. And stick together they did for the next 100 years, fighting in every major American war, until the half-brother kills their commanding officer and they are sentenced to death, which they both survive.
The only thing I could think of when I saw the montage of the two of them in every war, which frankly was pretty cool if you ask me.
Yeah,
All
probably
right?
the best part of the movie.
I only thought of the montage in Forrest Gump where Lieutenant Dan's his ancestors are dying in the same way in every. It was the same thing.
Right, yeah.
It was exactly. Well, why wasn't Lieutenant Dan's relative with them in each of these wars?
They could have saved Lieutenant Dan's relative.
Yeah,
They nullified Forrest Gump. by-
Gary Sinise also would have been a good choice
He would've
for
been
Wolverine.
What I do is not move my jaw.
Don't move my mouth when I talk at all.
Drowning man does not die silently.
But there's something to be said for what he says in Gump. It's about destiny. And I suppose when you're a natural fighter like Wolverine and Sabretooth, your destiny is to just fucking.
you're gonna end up,
You're going to end up
right?
in wars.
Fighting
So,
for causes.
Yeah.
He's a good fighter.
Don't go on a trip to Europe. Don't go to China. Stay right in North America, fighting every war.
Well, you got to imagine. I mean, he was born in the mid 1800s. He's probably pretty racist. Like, you really think he's gonna go to other? I don't know.
Saved a guy from Nagasaki.
A military man visits the now man with claws and the half-brother and offers them a spot on a team of people with special abilities, including a large and vulnerable man, a wisecracking mercenary, a teleporter, a marksman, and a man who can control technology with his mind. The man with claws and the half-brother join the team, but after the half-brother loses control during a mission and almost kills a guy, the man with claws quits the team.
And it's important to note at this point, too, we meet Stryker, who, if you haven't watched the X-Men movies, is a new character, but this is one of the first examples of having to see the previous movies, X-Men movies, to appreciate what's going on here.
Right.
We see the young Stryker, and since we know what he's going to wind up doing and wind up being, it takes on different importance now.
Sure.
Right. Frankly, I don't know whether that's good or bad. In theory, a good movie should be able to exist on its own, right? So in the world of trilogies, it's kind of tricky business. They should exist on their own, but there's something to be said for connecting to one another.
It's like it's kind of an unholy amalgamation of comic book stuff and like kind of fan service and
No, you said exactly the right word with the fan service. We talked about this in the past, how so many of these movies now are based upon online fanboyism instead of someone's idea of what a good movie should be.
But to the point of violating what makes a movie good or function as a complete piece of art.
Years later, the man with claws is living with his Native American lady friend when the military man visits and tries to recruit the man with claws for a special project, but he turns down the military man. The next day, the half-brother murders the man with claws' Native American lady friend while he's at work.
As soon as that bitch started talking about the moon and shit, I'm like, she's not long for this world.
The man with claws tracks down the half-brother and they fight, but the half-brother escapes. The man with claws visits the military man who tells him that the half-brother has gone rogue and has killed several former team members, including the wisecracking mercenary. The military man offers to put metal on the man with claws' bones, and he accepts. But when the military man attempts to erase the man with claws' memory during the procedure, the man with claws escapes, and an old farmer and his wife take him in.
This is a baffling part of the movie, the whole experiment with him.
Yes.
We find out as time goes on, he's like, oh, we got his DNA after they put the metal on him. If you added metal to him, how would that impact his DNA at all? We know he's got bone claws, so later on when Deadpool's got retractable blades and shit, how is that possible? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And during the
you
whole
would just have the
bone thing,
bones.
right?
It's just the bone.
And they're like, let's erase his memory. How would that help? Well, what will that do if we erase his memory? What does that mean? It's just all very murky.
But it's also like it is kind of a thing that they're doing because people know the backstory. They know that, especially even if you've just watched the first movie. You know he forgot all the shit. So it's about a 4-second fake out for no good reason.
And then Stryker's like, go hunt him down and kill him. But you know you're not going to be able to kill him.
Right.
You just added crazy fucking metal to his body. Why would you think it's easier now to just fucking go and kill him? And you know who you're going to send? The gun guy after him.
Yeah.
What? Of all the people you're sending the fucking gun guy after him, you just made him indestructible.
Give that gun guy a rocket launcher.
Well, really? It's the silliest block of the movie. Really
Stryker's
stupid.
always been murky in the movies because he's like, I hate mutants, but I need them to use them to make them better.
Because his son is a mutant.
This movie is just founded on, we need to do this building block to get to this building block so that we can finish with an amnesia bullet.
Yeah.
The man with the claws escapes, and an old farmer and his wife take him in. The next day, the marksman from the team kills the old farmer and his wife, and the man with claws crashes the marksman's helicopter and kills him, swearing revenge on the military man.
There's one thing in this whole trilogy that Wolverine needs to not do. It's don't go up to farmers.
Yeah, don't befriend anybody. They're going to die.
Yeah. Like the minute they hand him classic American workwear for him to put on.
Yeah. Perfect size.
Time.
Perfect size clothes.
Great
Say, you're pretty big. You could chop some wood. Oh, thanks for helping.
Yeah.
Oh my God, terrorists. The man with the claws goes to see the teleporter and the invulnerable man who has developed an eating disorder and is now gargantuanly fat. The invulnerable fat man tells him that the half-brother works for the military man, capturing people with special abilities for him to experiment on at an island laboratory, and that only one Cajun guy who throws exploding playing cards was able to escape.
When they mention the island of misfit mutants, I'm like, for God's sake.
Fucking,
The man with claws goes to find the Cajun card thrower, but he is intercepted by the half-brother, and they all fight. The half-brother escapes, and the Cajun card thrower agrees to help the man with claws get to the island and free the test subjects. When they arrive, the man with claws discovers that his Native American lady friend is alive and working for the military man.
Okay, so he found her body, And he was like, oh, she's dead. And he didn't do anything to the body. He didn't bury the body. He didn't burn the body. He just ran away.
Stryker lays it on pretty thick. He's like, this drug, you know what it does? It slows their heartbeat down. And it's like, well,
idiot.
Yeah. He like
Oh,
really,
you didn't know we
you
had
didn't
this.
realize it?
We have fucking gallons of adamantium. You don't think we have that?
You don't think we can do that? But when that revelation happened, when he said that she was still alive, I got to tell you, some spark in my head said, Vin, you thought there was something up with her in the early scenes, or something with her eyes, or something she did that made me think that she wasn't on the level.
Well, especially like all the stuff of like, you're the Wolverine.
Yeah.
And if he lost his moon and he could never see her again, I'm like, little on the fucking nose, because then that's what happens.
Right.
That she gets killed and that he has to pine after her, and he follows just story that she basically leads him down.
Yeah. Bet she had a good pussy, though.
It's probably when she used her power.
She's touching you and she's like, this is the best sex you've ever fucking had.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes, it is.
Indeed.
Yes, Bob. It is, Bob.
Yes.
I meant to say boob, not bub.
Did you just call me Blob?
I mean, major character things happen because they misconstrue fucking Wolverine saying the word bub.
Fucking madness.
Huge things happen because they can't hear him well.
It's like, somebody who was like, oh, Bub and Blob kind of sound the same. That's how we work it in.
High five.
There we go.
And they continued listening to Saint Anger on loop. It
Exactly.
was the most fucking...
The military man releases the wisecracking mercenary who is not dead, but now has no mouth and all the powers. And the man with claws and the half-brother fight with him.
Okay, so this is the big revelatory scene where finally, after not really understanding what the fuck Stryker's doing in this movie, he explains it all to us. Okay, I have to say that even though I was irritated up until this point with not really getting it, once he explained it, okay, it made sense. Like he's trying to use the DNA of these mutants to create the ultimate fucking mutant power guy.
Sure.
Okay, and that's Deadpool. And earlier he says, you'd be the perfect fucking guy, Deadpool.
But you didn't have a mouth.
And so he took his mouth away. But the real confusing part here is like, is it worth it? Is all this murkiness and confusion worth this revelation? Worth this revelation? Why did he even need it? Wasn't this team of mutant killers like good enough? Why do you need just one from those guys?
Yeah.
What, you couldn't pay for transportation because there was 5 of them? Fucking why do you have to consolidate these
Listen,
powers?
the hotel expenses are getting
like-
too much now. You guys refuse to share rooms. I get that, like, well, what if we put all the powers in one guy, right? That makes sense. Sure. You're trying to make like Superman, essentially.
Yeah, right.
But you just had this little problem with Wolverine where as soon as you made him, he ran away and you have zero control over him. You're like, all right, release the one that has all the powers and not just the big claws.
And let's just trust that
And
he'll
then
be cool.
immediately he's like, oh, we have no control over this thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Native American lady friend frees the test subjects and leads them to a bald man in a wheelchair, but is mortally wounded in the process. The man with claws defeats the formerly wisecracking mercenary, but the military man shoots him in the head with the special metal they put on his bones, making him lose his memory.
So they make it clear that the only thing that can pierce his adamantium skull is an adamantium bullet.
What's weird is not that him getting shot with an adamantium bullet makes him lose his memory. That's kind of weird, but what makes it even weirder is he knows it's going to make him lose his memory. Like loading the gun going, I'll shoot away his memory. Like, if I shoot him in the frontal cortex, it should just...
If I shoot him in the arm, he'll forget about his claws. Like,
I don't have time to actually load it. I'll wait till I'm standing in front of him, and then I'll load the bullet. What? But it's cool when Sabretooth comes back, and you get a little redemption there in their relationship. It's cool.
Sure.
okay.
The best part of the movie really is the brothers.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
the two of them. Liev Schreiber's fucking great.
Yes.
And the two of them, their relationship, we like that story. Then the whole Stryker thing comes in and just sidesteps the whole
exactly.
thing. Like they set the movie up and they're like, oh fuck, we got to put metal in them.
The filmmakers were like, we're calling this Origins. We got to get it all in there.
Yeah.
Every part of the word Origins, his whole origin.
Right.
Show his social security number. That's part of his origin.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that like Solo got hit for, that it was like every little thing that you knew about Han Solo, we got to see all that happen, and it's kind of the same thing.
At least Solo was only based upon the information we knew about Solo from the Star Wars movies. You have to jam in all the information about Wolverine from the comics, too. Yeah. You're adding movie shit in and comic shit in, and it's all got to be, well, this big, giant origin story of everything.
Right.
It's too much in too small a film.
Post credits. The military man is punished, and the formerly wisecracking mercenary is alive, though decapitated, and shushes the screen.
They fuck up Deadpool so badly in this movie, but it could have been
The
anybody
little
else.
glimmer at the beginning of the movie where it's just Ryan Reynolds mouthing off as Deadpool, you're like, yeah, okay, I could maybe see more of that. And like the more he was allowed and just be able to be himself.
He wrote a lot of his lines.
Yeah, I heard that.
Alrighty. That'll bring us to the second movie in our trilogy, The Wolverine.
2013.
In 1945, the man with claws is a Japanese prisoner just before the atomic bomb is about to drop, and he saves the life of a Japanese soldier. In the present, the man with claws lives off the grid in Canada, while being haunted by the memory of a woman he killed to save the world. A woman with the ability to see people's deaths and an associate of the Japanese soldier, now tech billionaire, visits the man with claws and tells him the tech billionaire is dying and wants to say goodbye. The man with claws goes to Japan, and the tech billionaire offers to transfer the man with claws' healing abilities so that the man with claws can finally die.
What an assumption to make. I know you're sad because you can't die, but if you let me live, I can make you die.
Clear something up for me real quick. Have they seen each other since he saved his life? No, okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
So the fact that he'd be like, you can die, I know you want to. Like, you don't know me at all. Well, you're this old and you haven't been able to die. Clearly you must want to die. Well, you're this old and you don't want to die.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here? Like, and how would he know how old he was when he met him then?
Unless you told him.
Yeah.
In that hole.
I mean,
I gotta go. By the way, I'm like 150 right now.
I don't know, whatever.
It was even, how did you get Wolverine and put him in a hole outside of Nagasaki? How did that happen?
Well, he had regular bones then, right? So
It almost looked like I guess he was a prisoner. It also seemed like maybe he was just hanging out.
Yeah,
in the hole.
really, he's coming in, he's going out, he's just fucking around.
Just hanging out in
He's
the
like,
hole.
well, it just feels like he's like, well, I got no better place to be right now. This old guy's got a lot of nerve. Fucking laying on an executive desk toy, you push your face in, and the metal pops out and makes the shape of your face.
Especially,
what is that?
That is such a wild invention, and it doesn't even work for Wolverine when he puts himself in it later.
the man with claws says no to all that. And that night, a snake woman spits something in his mouth while he's sleeping, but he disregards it.
She's another confusing element because she stands out like a fucking sore thumb. She's the only other white person in Japan, and we don't know what the fuck she's doing there.
I think she fits in great with the rest of the cast because none of them really can act.
Well, if you're going by that.
Yeah. The next morning, the tech billionaire is dead, and as they attend the funeral, the Yakuza arrive and try to kill the tech billionaire's granddaughter.
It's safe to say if it's happening in Japan in this situation, it's going to be the Yakuza.
I think they're your go-to goons, you know?
And they can never hide their shit. You look down, it's like, this guy's got a fucking giant tattoo on his leg. Gotta be Yakuza.
It's a status symbol.
Missing a finger. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
They have katanas. The man with claws protects the granddaughter and is shot, realizing his healing abilities have been slowed down by the snake woman.
I like when Wolverine's on the back step because it means he has to actually think.
I think it makes sense. You have to take away his healing ability. There's got to be stakes.
I think that takes away from the interest of his character. I think one of the coolest things about Wolverine is he fucking heals. You're taking that away in 2 of the 3 movies, and I'm like, well, you know, that's cool.
We talked a little bit about this, like with Iron Man 3, which I wasn't crazy about, but I think has a lot of similarities to Logan because they do the thing where he loses the suit, right?
Right.
Which is the fun part of the movie. Yet the movie is still somehow entertaining.
Yeah,
right?
it's okay.
I think it's a little more interesting. You're like, all right, let's see what you do without that.
But you still don't know when it's going on why it's happening. You're like, why can't he fucking heal all of a sudden?
Well, it's like
I gotta guess.
It's
like we have the same knowledge as Wolverine in this movie because this movie is essentially like a neo-noir. The man with claws and the granddaughter begin to fall in love while on the run, but the Yakuza attack again and kidnap the granddaughter.
There's no reason that these two people should fall for each other. 5 seconds after they bang each other, she calls him an animal and then wants to know all about his ex-girlfriend.
Tell me about your accent.
Right.
Were any of them prettier than me?
And what happens? He has his dream.
Goes to sleep, wakes up, screams, "Ah!" and then stabs something or something. and then just feels like a real piece of shit about it.
Wolverine should put like a catcher's mitt on his hands before he goes to bed.
Yeah.
Just in case.
The man with claws interrogates the granddaughter's fiance, who tells them the granddaughter's father is the one trying to kill the granddaughter because she was given control of the tech billionaire's company.
And we think at this point, we're like, well, that's what this is about. You know, the father doesn't want the granddaughter to get the money. That's the primary conflict. And they say it, and then they kind of just blow right past it.
The man with claws goes to the tech billionaire's home and uses an x-ray machine to see that there is a parasitic robot on his head. The man with claws cuts himself open and removes it, bringing his healing ability back to normal.
I just have to mention this is a very strange scene because the father is not killed by the hot breath woman. Instead, he goes and finds some ancient armor and puts it on, starts attacking Wolverine, who's ripped open his heart and is trying to pull a fucking nanobot off of it. And we don't know until this point what this nanobot is about. That's the revelation that's why he can't heal or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
So much crazy shit is going on during this wacky scene here.
Yeah, I was surprised too because like the quick shot of her being like in his mouth while he's sleeping, you're like, I assumed it was like a poison of some sort.
She knocked him out with her breath and then put the robot in his mouth. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
how did the robot get in there?
I guess it grew into a
That's what I'm saying.
parasite,
Yeah,
but it's
fucking
basically
weird.
fucking
A nanoparasite,
nanobots. Yeah.
And then suddenly it ends by the daughter being taken by ninjas. And they're throwing around the word ninja. And it's like, what am I, 10 years old? Ninjas.
Go ninja, go!
Go ninja, go ninja, go.
I do love the fight scene
ninja, go.
between the father and Wolverine. I love
In his old samurai armor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's just cool stuff. I don't know.
You think he's dead, though, and suddenly he's like, let me just grab this armor. I'm good
Hold
now.
on, let me get in here real quick.
You think it's just like a decoration in the house, and it's like, no, I can get into this armor. It still works.
The snake woman then captures the man with claws and puts him in a machine that will transfer his healing ability to a giant samurai made of the special metal on his bones.
Jesus.
The man with claws fights the giant samurai only to find that the tech billionaire is in the suit and faked his death.
We have a second fight, which also doesn't really make much sense, to a point where the one guy's like, this is madness. And it's like, yeah, we fucking know.
Yeah.
And again, for the second time in a row, we're trying to isolate Wolverine's powers and put them into someone else. No one can just leave this guy's DNA alone. And before the guy's head chops off and we realize there's a human in there, we're like, what the fuck is this robot here? There's robots in this movie?
It's always the bigger version of the hero, right?
Right.
Or the
Yeah.
They're
using,
always
using
trying
the same
to-
kind of power, like
Yeah.
either literally in the last movie using his powers.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, the snake lady, she sheds her skin the way a snake would. And underneath it, she's the same person,
Exactly the
but
same.
just bald. Why did you do? Why was that?
I was very confused by that.
Somebody
in
comes
the
along
movie.
and picks up the skin, and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And we find out this is where we find out that the old man has hired her, and like the ninjas have helped her to complete his plan or whatever. Up until that piece of dialogue, we have no idea what her point is in this movie.
She pukes in
Just hanging
people's
around.
mouths
Yeah.
while they sleep.
Putting nanobots in people.
Yeah.
Put a nanobot in my dick, bitch.
Will that help?
It can't hurt.
The tech billionaire breaks off the man with claws and begins stealing his power. But the granddaughter stabs the tech billionaire with the broken claws, allowing the man with claws to grow back his claws and kill the tech billionaire.
And so we get the bone claws return again.
Yeah.
So that's
Pretty cool.
It's like poetry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
Post credit. The man with claws is accosted in the airport by a man who controls metal and a bald man in a wheelchair.
Aren't we all when we go to the airport?
The way he speeds into the movie at the end, he's so fast on that thing.
I know. At the end of the day, I thought this movie was dumb in the same way the first movie was just chaos until a big revelation at the end. But I was in some way in the first movie satisfied by the revelation. And this one, this old man's story with living forever, it didn't move me in any way.
I agree with you, the confusion, but I feel like, in a weird way with this movie, it's not a bug, it's a feature, because it's supposed to be this noir detective story where you don't really know what's going on. You know, you're kind of in the same, you have the same amount of knowledge as the main character.
Your point is really interesting. The idea that we only know what he knows, so it changes how the revelation is, how we perceive it. That's interesting.
It's a different kind of story.
Yeah.
Being confused in the first movie was just kind of like because it was sloppy.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was like, it wasn't sloppy, but that was kind of the point, was
Yeah.
that
All right.
it was a mystery.
he's coming out of a depression and realizing, yes, I do want to live. And yes, my nature is not that I'm an animal. It's that I can smell when something's wrong. Wolverine is a hero despite his animalistic tendencies.
I would be remiss, though, if I did not mention that this is a common trilogy trend, second movie where we go to Asia, where we try and kind of mix it up after a successful first movie. So in the tradition of The Karate Kid Part 2, the second Rush Hour, the second Hangover, the second Cars. I mean, there's a couple where we go to Europe too, but this is a common trilogy trend. That is a good transition, I think, into our third film, Scotty.
And of course, close out the trilogy
with Logan.
2017.
Many years later, the man with claws is a limo driver and is now caring for the bald man in the wheelchair, with the help of an albino who can smell people with special abilities. The bald man in the wheelchair is suffering from dementia, which, mixed with his telepathy, causes him to have psychic seizures, one of which killed most of the group of people with special abilities that he created and injured hundreds the year prior.
Jesus Christ. Now, having not seen the 4 X-Men movies after the original 3, did any of this happen? Is this all brand new information?
This is new information.
All brand new.
It's all brand new.
Yeah, this is like a shoot forward into the future. And
it feels like they're just trying to use Xavier in a different way since he's pretty much kind of the same in all the movies. Let him act a little bit, do something different,
This movie is like the consequences of his ability to just slow down people's thoughts. What if he has dementia? And now
they're both living with regret. A lot of Wolverine has regret, but we also get to see Professor X remember that he killed his students.
Yeah, the frailty of getting older.
Yeah.
This whole element where he's taking care of Professor X, I'm sure you'll disagree with me, but it doesn't go anywhere necessarily. He's taking care of him. They're in fucking Mexico like Jesse Ventura out in the Baja, and they're just fucking chilling out there, and he's got him in a big metal dome, and then he takes him on the road, and then it doesn't figure into the plot of the movie so much. It really has nothing to do with the plot of the movie, ultimately. So it's a device to serve the characters, but not so much the story.
James Mangold specializes in the sad dad movie. I mean, we see it in Indiana Jones, with Wolverine. He does character studies.
But fair enough. This is a character study. I get it. But then, if that's the case and that's the direction you're going to go, that's great. Then don't take me back to a third situation in which someone is trying to isolate the power of mutants in a hospital. Like we'll talk about it in a second. You can't have it both ways.
A Mexican nurse asks the man with claws to drive her and a young girl with special abilities to a set of coordinates, and the man with claws reluctantly agrees. But when the man with claws goes to pick them up, he finds the Mexican nurse dead and the young girl gone. When the man with claws returns, he discovers the young girl is stowed away in his limo. And when the head of security of the biotech company that the Mexican nurse worked for arrives and tries to take back the young girl, the man with claws and the young girl, who also has claws, fight back and are able to escape with the bald man in the wheelchair. But the albino is captured.
You really think that this Mexican lady is going to play a huge part in the movie, and she just promptly dies. When he watches the video that the Mexican lady makes of like the lab and lays out the plot, I wrote down here, that comes at the 47-minute mark when we see that video. So up until then, we're baffled as to why X's brain is dying, and we're in the desert, and the plot doesn't get started for 47 minutes.
It's an easy plot device, right? And it's just a way for us to get Wolverine with his daughter.
And Scott, you and Joe, who's our tech guru for our website for the podcast, you guys have been trying to get me to watch The Boys for a long time. And I've just started watching it, and I found so many similarities between Logan and The Boys. The idea of manufacturing powers. I mean, Butcher is just like Logan, looks exactly like him. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems...
You're wrong.
Let's move on. No, it just feels like this is a common plot device. Someone wants to isolate these powers and do something bad with them.
Right.
And the only way to get that is to get some mutants and fuck with them in some way or grow them or whatever.
And the reason that a lot of times they can get away with doing stuff like this, like the higher ups, the scientific community, the military community, whatever, is because most people are terrified of mutants. And the general public doesn't like them. Why do you think racist policies got put in place? Because the public was okay with it happening.
Right. This is a larger metaphor.
The man with claws watches a video on the Mexican nurse's phone showing that the biotech company created the young girl with claws and other children with special abilities to be weapons, and that the young girl with claws was created from the man with claws DNA. Meanwhile, the head of security tortures the albino and forces him to track the young girl with claws. Meanwhile, the man with claws discovers that the coordinates they are driving to were taken from a comic based on the group of people with special abilities that he was a member of.
I love that detail. I think that's
so funny.
so fun.
And it's weird that it's like that time has passed too. Like
Yeah.
they're like, because no New Mutants have been born.
But I was saying this to you the other day, Scott. How could Wolverine or Professor Xavier be anonymous in any way? Their comic books are made out of them. From the events of the previous X-Men movies, they've got to be the biggest celebrities on Earth. How could Wolverine just be a limo driver?
He's a white dude with a beard and kind of looking beat up.
Did I see you performing The Music Man in the West End? Not me.
Couldn't be me.
Couldn't be me.
I have a beard. Suddenly, the biotech company goons attack, but they are able to escape after the bald man in the wheelchair has a super seizure, incapacitating the goons.
When I saw that scene, I was like, damn, Xavier hit the Keno jackpot and made him have a seizure. He fucking killed everybody at the casino. But it's cool watching Wolverine fight his way up to Xavier and through everyone that's all fucked up and shit.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Yep.
Later, the man with claws, the young girl with claws, and the bald man in the wheelchair help a family on the highway and end up having dinner with them and staying the night.
Just let your soul glow. It's good to see that Eric LaSalle has gotten a big movie part.
Yeah.
And it's especially cool because he follows us on TikTok.
Later that night, the bald man in the wheelchair and the family are murdered by a clone of the man with claws created by the biotech company. The man with claws and the young girl with claws are able to seemingly kill the clone and escape. Despite knowing it was taken from a comic book, the young girl with claws insists on going to the coordinates, and they find the other children with special abilities who are about to cross into Canada, but the man with claws will not be joining them. But then the kids get attacked by the biotech company, and the man with claws goes to rescue them and kills the head of security and the head doctor of the biotech company. The clone of the man with claws returns and impales the man with claws before being shot in the head with a bullet made of the special metal they put on his bones, and the clone's head explodes.
Hey, what happened to the thing where if you shoot him in the head, he just loses his memory?
Well, he didn't have any memories because he was a clone. So the memories back up the
fuck
bullet,
off. That's
right?
bullshit.
If I may, actually, and I just thought as you were saying that, wouldn't that have been a better ending? You have that whole ending with Logan. He dies. She shoots this other Logan who has no memory of being trained to be a killer. And he's sort of he's a new Wolverine. And it would have made more sense to kind of bookend the trilogy, right? With him losing his memory and then a new Wolverine losing his memory. But, I mean, I thought it was kind of dumb in the first movie, but at this point, like if you're bringing back the adamantium bullet, play by the same rules.
Yeah, thank you. And this is around the time where the doctor gives his whole speech about what he's been doing.
He says they put the drug in the water to prevent mutants from being born, to fuck with the DNA.
Right. It's kind of crazy though, right? Like you stopped mutants from being born and then you created your own mutants. Yeah.
So he gives a whole speech and he's got a backstory with Wolverine. As one of the doctors, my father, when you broke out and this and that.
Right.
You're like, oh, wow, they've got a connection there. And this is an interesting story.
And they mentioned so much plot and then he shoots him in the fucking head.
Maybe disarm Wolverine first before you start your speech. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
I'd also make this suggestion now that, Wolverine, the second time in this film, fights himself, right?
Yeah.
Is this the final boss battle of fucking every video game in history where you have to fight a version of yourself?
It's a pretty typical. And the MCU is not, they're not immune to that.
It's every RPG game ever made.
Yeah.
Dark Souls, you always have to fight yourself in some way.
Yep.
The man with claws dies, and the children bury him.
It's certainly sad, but we should really feel happy for Wolverine at the end. I think he alludes to it. I think his final words are something like "finally." Or,
Now I know what it feels like.
Now I know what it feels like. Good moment.
Yeah.
But it should be a happy moment for Wolverine. This is what he's wanted this entire time. This was the ultimate.
Well, I mean,
Do you
ending.
think that line is about him dying?
No.
I thought it was dying.
Feeling love or feeling.
She said she holds his hand and calls him daddy.
Right.
And I feel like he's like, oh, that's what that feels like.
But
to
also,
feel like I'm a father,
to feel,
that I'm
because what Yukio says is you die covered in blood, holding your own heart. And that's his daughter.
how you die. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
I didn't realize. I didn't think
angle.
about that until I was watching the Wolverine, and she said that. And I was like,
boom.
I thought that the moment where she turns the cross over to an X is a great moment too.
The reason that she does that in movie is because he's not very religious.
You don't see him in church in any of these
He's a
films. He's Canadian. But it's obviously it's bigger than Wolverine. It's the end of the X-Men.
Yeah.
It's the end of the X-Men films.
Well, they made more. They
Not
made
really.
more
They
movies.
made like 2 more.
They
Dark
made-
Phoenix and then New Mutants.
That's kind of a reboot. No,
not really.
It's the characters from like First Class and all that.
Yeah, so it's those
so it's like the
characters.
same.
Okay.
It's the same characters continuing just without Wolverine.
then it takes something away from it because I looked at it like
It kind of-
the
it
end
probably
of,
should have been.
No matter whether you like these movies or not, how you feel about each individual one, it is what it is. But like you can't argue that they were hugely significant, and I like the idea
Yeah.
of kind of capping them off by being like, "This is the last X-Men." This
If
is
only executives thought that way.
Yeah, but I wish it was more about his relationship with the girl, and everything else could have happened and been fine. But I feel like it took too long to get there because it would have made this ending that much more powerful for me. Because they kind of cram it into the end. They don't start having a real relationship till she gets behind the wheel of the fucking car and starts driving them.
Yeah, she doesn't start talking
Yeah.
until Professor X dies.
Exactly. So it's
Till there's
almost,
no one else to deliver lines.
they sort of chop the movie in half
Yeah.
there between his relationship with X and his relationship with her. And I would have liked them to either like focus on one.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
All right. These were the plots. So it's time to move on, Scotty.
Yes, to your information session, we call it, right? Isn't that what it's
I don't
called?
think it's information. I think it's X-Men Origins Wolverine. Because they were going to make a fucking bunch of Origins movies, right? So the next one was supposed to be Magneto, and they were going to do an Xavier one.
Yep.
And then the rest died in development.
It
right?
somehow managed to make money and piss everyone off at the same time.
Yeah.
Wolverine's the only one that makes sense to do because you can use the same actor. You're not taking a chance on a younger version of somebody else.
Yeah.
It was directed by Gavin Hood, who really doesn't have a huge resume except that he won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. I guess they call it international film now.
Or Tsotsi?
Tsotsi, all right, which I guess has to do with South African apartheid and these kinds of themes. He connected it to the idea of mutants. That's what attracted him to it. The writers were David Benioff, who's most famous for Game of Thrones.
Or ducking out of fucking doing it right at the end. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, Phil. And Skip Woods, who's famous for many bad movies, such as Hitman, The A-Team, and the fifth Die Hard movie. Ooh. His name is Skip Woods. You hear the name Skip Woods, and you're like, this guy's in a very good
Hey,
screenwriter.
listen, don't worry
I think
about
of a
it.
little girl skipping through the woods.
We got Skip Woods on this one.
Get me Skip Woods.
The screenplay was actually unfinished when they began shooting.
Really?
And they were pulling new pages the night before that were being sent from L.A. and then shooting what they got.
You know what? I didn't know. I
Couldn't tell. No idea.
No idea. I'm surprised. Wow, really came
Such
together.
a cohesive narrative.
The story is a combo of the Weapon X storyline and Frank Miller's 1982 series, as well as the 2001 Origin, which shows his life before Weapon X. So it's a combination of a bunch of comics. This is sort of a confluence of different Wolverine stories throughout the decades. Singer and Ratner both wanted to return to the X-Men world, and Snyder turned it down because he was doing Watchmen at the time.
Fucking Zack Snyder X-Men. What a shit show that would be.
This movie was shot in Australia. Now, the producer of this film was actually Richard Donner, famous director of Superman 2, his wife. And
Lauren Schuller Donner.
She produced all 3 films. And there was a big dispute between the studio, which is Fox at the time, and Hood over the whole idea of the PTSD theme. Hood wanted to really lay into the PTSD stuff, and the producers were like, well, no, the audience doesn't want to see this. It's too much.
Yeah.
And it seems as if the producers kind of got their way. I mean, naturally, it plays into the overall torture that the character goes through.
Yeah.
But he's not having flashbacks to the Civil War or whatever the fuck. Hugh Jackman was actually a producer on this and all 3 films. He really had big time impact when it came to what these movies were going to be about, the screenplay. But he wound up doing this movie because he turned down Iron Man.
What?
They offered him Iron Man. He turned it down for this film, and that's why Robert Downey Jr. got it.
At the time, seems like a no-brainer because it's like, yeah, Wolverine's much more popular than
Of course.
Iron Man. I'm Wolverine.
Liev Schreiber, he was interested in playing the part of Sabretooth because he saw it as the relationship between Wolverine and Sabretooth as the relationship between Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe in the tennis world. They were hated rivals, but kind of needed each other.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
And a lot of this is roped in with Ryan Reynolds. He was obviously unhappy with the Deadpool character.
Yeah.
You know, there was going to be a Deadpool movie already that just kind of got stuck for a while. That's the reason he was invited to play the character in this movie, and it wasn't the way he'd envisioned the character.
Stryker finally figured out how to shut you up.
Hey, it's me. Don't scratch. Just cleaning up the timelines.
There were multiple endings. There was the Deadpool severed head ending. right?
Yeah.
But there was another filmed ending where Wolverine's drinking in a Japanese bar. So they're alluding to what the next movie's going to be.
Right.
We're already planning an apology movie.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
I mean, Hugh Jackman, even before release, kind of admitted that they could have all done better.
I don't want to diss people, but in the end, when I look back at it, I thought what we did was...
I don't really like to get into CGI with these movies. By and large, I think it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I think those claws look so fucking stupid in X-Men Origins. To me, it looks like fucking Roger Rabbit, like he just pulled the singing sword out. Then they insist on having a scene of him closely examining and looking at him. I'm like, stop! The claws look bad in the movie because Hugh Jackman like hurt somebody apparently filming a scene on a previous X-Men movie with like the stunt claws. He like poked him or something and like really fucked him up, and he felt bad about it and was like, I'm not going to use claws anymore.
How you doing, creep? Good. Me too. Except my arm has really been bothering me lately.
Oh no, Dad.
Oh yeah, it's becoming a claw!
A really funny thing that happened with this movie is there was a huge online leak at the time.
Oh, I remember that.
Where about 4.5 million downloads went out before the movie came out. The funny story about it is they did a lot of, investigating as to who did it. Eventually, a guy named Gilberto Sanchez from the Bronx was found to be the person who originally uploaded it onto the internet, served a year in jail, and claimed he got it from a Korean man on the street.
That all sounds accurate.
All of this is great.
And what are you talking about? I got it from a Korean guy down the block.
He was selling on the street. What do you want from me, huh?
We find out later it was originally a preview copy for Rupert Murdoch that had been stolen.
Incredible.
And somehow Gilberto got it. Or the Korean man.
Rupert Murdoch had every Korean who worked for him killed.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Killed.
The movie was made for $150 million. It did about $373,179 domestically. Pretty bad reviews, though. People were getting kind of tired of the X-Men at this point a little bit. That was a big criticism at the time. And I think that's a pretty good analysis.
They crammed too much into it.
Cram it up your cram hole on the floor.
The Wolverine. The Wolverine was originally going to be directed by Darren Aronofsky.
Yes, I remember that.
The first treatment was written by Chris McQuarrie, and they were going to work together on the film.
Yeah.
All right. And then McQuarrie, he left once Aronofsky dropped out, and then they weren't sure who was going to direct it. They went through many different directors. There was even some interest. Del Toro was even interested in directing it, which probably would have been cool.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
And they took the original screenplay from McQuarrie, and it was rewritten by Mark Bombeck, who is a trilogy superstar. He wrote one of the Insurgent films, and Scott Frank was the other screenwriter, and he's sort of famous for adapting movies. So he did Get Shorty, he did Out of Sight, Minority Report, Marley and Me. Mangold was the director.
James Mangold.
He's directed Copland, the Johnny Cash Walk the Line movie, and he also did the most recent Indiana Jones film. So he's a big deal right now in the world of directors. The Wolverine was based on Frank Miller's 1982 limited series.
The first run of it is great, and then this starting with like his wedding and like, hey, I'm getting married, everyone come to my wedding in Japan, and like all the X-Men come to the wedding. I'm like, instantly, like, these issues suck. They kind of wrapped up all the Japanese stuff, and then like,
yeah, and then it just becomes
like, hey, it's a wedding for Wolverine and Mariko. It's like Wolverine. An underwhelming story to get him back with the X-Men.
But everybody was going crazy about this subject matter. In a way, Wolverine is like a Japanese Ronin in that he is just a wandering samurai, but doesn't have a master, doesn't have any direction, right?
When I read comics, they weren't always about saving the Earth. They were actually more like Westerns and samurai films. Blood feuds, revenge sagas.
Like the first film, it was shot in Australia. These movies are predominantly shot in Australia, and of course there were scenes in Tokyo as well. When we're talking about the CGI, the coolest movement in the movie for me is the bullet train fight.
I love the bullet train fight.
Right?
Yeah,
So they're hanging on wires, with a green screen behind them, and that's how they did it. But fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I think I've even seen some making of clips where he's jumping around on those wires for the bullet train scene. It's fucking great, right? This movie was made from between $100 and $132 million and did $414 million, 132 domestically. It outgrossed the Origins, but did less domestically, and frankly had the lowest money made for any X-Men or Wolverine film until Dark Phoenix.
That was bad.
Critics generally liked it, but everyone criticized a cartoonish ending. And even Mangold said, he was like, this was meant to be a small-scale, sort of intimate movie, but he was forced by his producers to create this big CGI fight at the end to compete with the movies of the time, which would be Thor: Dark World, Man of Steel,
Yeah.
So he's competing with other superheroes that are doing these big CGI-ridden shits.
Feels a little jammed in there.
Yeah, so...
Oh, shit.
Right.
Where'd that thing come from?
All right, the third movie is Logan. Not Logan Paul, Phil. Just Logan.
Good.
This movie was also directed by Mangold. The writers were Scott Frank and Michael Green, who's a trilogy superstar. He also wrote one of the Poirot trilogy movies, Murder on the Orient Express.
Nice.
Indeed, the writing on this movie was so good that it garnered an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is absolutely unique in the world of superhero movies.
Yeah.
You know,
One of the
which
first
is,
times.
Yeah, the
If
first
not the
time.
fir- oh,
film.
it was the?
It
Wow.
was indeed. It was indeed. It was Jerry Seinfeld that influenced Hugh Jackman to make this the last movie. He said that you never know when the audience is going to turn on you.
Yeah.
And that's so true. So it's about ending on the right note, ending
Right.
on the right peak.
In a weird way, when you watch the last season, I'm like, I think you were right.
He was.
Like, even with the beginning of the season begins, and you're like, it's getting a little tiring.
Yep.
I don't know how you got me here, but thank you.
De nada.
Yeah. You can talk. You can talk. Well, why the fuck? What's all this bullshit been for the last 2,000 fucking miles?
No me ganas que hable contigo si me insultas. Si me gritas,
What?
si me intentas
Shut up. Shut the fuck up!
This is based on Old Man Logan. It was set in an alternate future where the villains have overthrown the superheroes. I guess that's what happened in the comics.
Yeah.
And Mangold really, again, we're talking about Seinfeld, but other strange resources. Mangold's talking about that this movie is a combination of The Wrestler and Unforgiven. Then, of course, directly influenced by Shane. The movie Shane is in the fucking movie.
Yep.
Right.
And quoted at the end. That's a gunslinger, and what's the last trilogy we fucking did? When you talk about You Wore a Yellow Ribbon, you're talking about The Last Ride for
Yeah.
John Wayne, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
these are men at the end of their run. People who are great for a time, and then they've realized they've come to the end. And how does a great man end?
Yeah.
How will we end this podcast one day? We have done a great thing here, but when we get to our last episode, how will we perceive what our body is?
Clones will kill us.
I'll kill you, Phil. That's enough for me. They also weave in Little Miss Sunshine, too, as an influence here.
Oh,
Works.
Alan Arkin is clearly a template for the Wolverine.
You think so?
Hey, I got claws! I can't sleep without screaming!
So yeah, Jackman was deeply involved in this film. He took less money to make it an R film, and this is your R movie, your Logan R movie. And you have this whole meta comic thing going on where there are comics in the movie, and Marvel gave them permission to use it so long as they were fake comics, that they weren't real comics, that they were invented just for the movie. Yeah. Shot in New Orleans and New Mexico. Then this was around the time where Disney acquired 20th Century Fox. It was made from between $97 and $127 million and did $619 million worldwide.
As an R-rated movie?
Yep. 226 in the United States. But it was the widest released R film for its time, beating out American Sniper, which had been the biggest up until that point. When they released it in the United States, they originally did a black and white limited release version of it. It'll survive in black and white is what Mangold said.
Yeah.
And then in the theaters, it was preceded by a Deadpool short film.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, it happened, Phil.
I believe
it
you.
happened, Phil. Long story short, this is considered one of the best superhero films ever made. Critics loved it, and they call it the Dark Knight of X-Men films.
The mask is really intimidating, huh? It's like Batman, except he can move his neck.
Let's move on now to the only two actors that were in all three movies. The first one, of course, is Hugh Jackman.
Huge
Jackman.
Jackman.
There aren't enough jokes about him masturbating, and there really should be. Hugh Jackman is really a song and dance man. He's a musical performer.
He's the boy from Oz.
Okay, he did Australian productions of Beauty and the Beast, of Sunset Boulevard. He was on the West End in London doing Oklahoma. And on Broadway, he was in The Boy from Oz, in which he won a Tony. Brought back The Music Man, where he got another Tony nomination. For Christ's sake, he's hosted the Tonys 4 times.
Any dance you can dance, I can dance better. I can dance any dance better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I have never met a sadder, more attention star-jabbering little prick in my entire life.
He auditioned for Wolverine and did not get the part. It was offered to Russell Crowe. He turned it down, recommended Hugh. Doug Ray Scott got the part. And then Tom Cruise was like, no, he's mine for Mission Impossible 2.
Obviously, he became a part of our consciousness in this country with Wolverine.
Yeah.
Okay. He didn't do very much before that in this country on screen at all. So you're looking at X-Men. You're looking at Swordfish. That was a bit of a goofy ass movie. Travolta,
hamming it up.
He was in Kate and Leopold, which was a romantic comedy, a real departure from Wolverine. Van Helsing is his other big part. He was in a fucking Woody Allen movie called Scoop. And I mean, like, if you can go from Wolverine to fucking Woody Allen, you know what I mean? A very dialogue-driven movie, a nebbishy dialogue-driven movie.
Guy's got range.
Yeah, he's got range. And he was also in, I think everyone that's ever seen it can't say enough good things about The Prestige.
Oh, The Prestige is one
and
of
how
my
fucking
favorite.
cool is The Prestige?
It's great.
Now, has he had some bad movies? Sure. If you ever saw Real Steel, you know, you want to put a bullet in your head when you're done. It's about fighting robots. It's ridiculous.
It's Rock'em Sock'em.
He's also,
Right, exactly.
I'm not too crazy about Chappie, but he is an incredible piece of shit in that movie.
And, you know, he got the Academy Award nomination for his part in Les Mis. He's a trilogy superstar, though, Scott. He had a small part in the third Night at the Museum film as King Arthur.
Oh.
And he was also, of course, in the most recent Deadpool.
Sure.
I don't fucking care.
Phil, he was in a WWE thing. He was in
That's
Raw
right.
one time. He punched somebody, Dolph Ziggler, in the face or something.
I mean, and then Dolph Ziggler did like 5 flips and wound up in Poughkeepsie.
He's one of these actors that subscribes to transcendental meditation, and there's quite a huge amount of actors that do this.
Oh, yeah.
But
Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, it's another example, Howard Stern. But for me, I think it's stupid. Let's move on to Patrick Stewart, who is, I mean, sort of in the first 2 movies. He's in the credits, you know, and he's big in the third one. We all know what Patrick Stewart is about. He's a Royal Shakespearean guy, all right? He's done essentially every Shakespeare on stage as part of the Royal Shakespeare Company. He became a part of our public consciousness in this country with Star Trek The Next Generation from 87 to 94. And he's basically kind of spoofed that part on television for 30 years, whether it be SNL, The Simpsons, The Family Guy, Futurama, Robot Chicken, an extremely funny bit in Extras, this kind of thing.
So in my film, I play a man who controls the world with his mind.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, for instance, I'm walking along and I see this beautiful girl and I think I'd like to see her naked, and so all her clothes fall off.
All her clothes fall off?
Yes, and she's scrabbling around to get them back on again, but even before she can get her knickers on, I've seen everything. You know, I've seen it all.
Okay.
He came back to Star Trek with that Picard show that was on a couple of years ago,
Yes.
right?
Very good.
Did all the Generations shits, the Star Trek Generations, First Contact, all those Star Treks. In film, he's more known as being a famous voice. The narrator in The Nightmare Before Christmas, a voice in Prince of Egypt, in Bambi Part 2. God help us.
Wait, there was a second Bambi?
Yes, there was, Phil.
The poop emoji in the Emoji Movie.
Romeo and Juliet, the narrator of Ted, and the Charlie's Angels reboot. And of course, he was in that Doctor Strange. He came back to play Xavier against what he said he was going to do. He swore he would never play him again.
We should tell him the truth.
I would say that Patrick Stewart's claim to fame nowadays, as much as his films and Star Trek, is his relationship with Ian McKellen and their lovey-dovey friendship that they have.
Yeah.
Like, they're really funny together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A straight guy and a gay guy, and they're pals, and they're Shakespeareans, and they're British. And they have such a fun and enjoyable camaraderie with one another. People love it. I love it. I think they're great together, right?
And McKellen has softened him in that, according to Star Trek members, he now kisses them all on the mouth.
Oh, God.
And I was told you can get away with it.
In the
If you're a
first
star, they'll let you do it.
Slip me the tongue.
In the first season,
Make it
he was so serious about working on the show, and he was like, "We're having too much fun."
It's like, bitch, this is Star Trek.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Is he just before he kisses them? Does he just go engage?
That was Vinformation, and it is now time to move on to the part of our episode, guys, where we just kind of give our notes on some of the funny little quirky scenes and bits and amusing parts of each of these 3 films. So we're going to jump into those right away. And of course, the first one is going to be X-Men Origins Wolverine.
It's not about you, Logan. Your country needs you. I'm Canadian.
Hey, how about just a movie about Wolverine during World War II?
That would be great.
How about just that?
Him and
Love
Captain America
You
hanging
can do
out.
a prequel. You can jump around during any point in time you want, and you know it seems like they just want to tell a story in the present day.
Yeah.
It's like no,
Or
just,
like how he got to be in all these wars, his military history, you know?
Yeah. Or like just say him and Sabretooth, you know, like they're battling for the Confederacy or for the Union or each other with both.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, brothers.
Here's a thought I had while watching this movie. It's kind of late in the game for me to have had this thought, but
You want to date men? Is that?
okay.
I'm
We're
sorry.
all
I
here
had the
for
wrong.
you.
I'm sorry. I had the
He's
wrong
still in his
idea.
30s. It's okay. Figure it out.
That's the other note I wrote. I wrote, Rogue put a boy in the hospital and she never wanted to use her powers again. Logan killed his dad and then just kept right on going.
Oh, we should probably mention now. You know who is in this movie? Dominic
Monaghan.
Yes, he was, Phil.
Trilogy superstar. He's in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Great trilogy. But he always manages to be in the worst entry of every other trilogy he shows up in. Rise of Skywalker, X-Men Origins, Wolverine.
Kevin Durant, the guy who played the Blob, is also a trilogy superstar.
Wait, what?
He was in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, and his character was Bazooka Marksman Joe. Probably not very memorable, but he was also in Big Mama's House Part 2, another trilogy. And listen, since we're just talking about the actors right now, it's probably worth mentioning Liev Schreiber. I mentioned him before.
Terrific.
He's probably most famous for, playing Ray Donovan on that TV show.
Yeah.
But what else do you guys, how do you see him?
Cotton Weary. Definitely knew him before Ray Donovan. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, was it because of this movie? No,
Maybe.
I knew him before this too, I think.
Early on, we see Wolverine and Liev fighting in all the wars. And even in those parts, Wolverine's sort of giving Liev the side eye, like, you're enjoying this too much.
Yeah.
Usually dudes lose it midway through one.
Right.
I got to admire Sabretooth's willpower to last 80 years worth of wars before snapping.
Yeah, him leaving the team and that being the reason of him, like, you almost killed that innocent guy. Like this hasn't come up before.
I mean, really, we're fighting every fucking war.
I mean,
Right.
And like you can tell in that montage, they're having fun with it. One's throwing the gun over his head. He catches it behind him. They're fucking around. They're enjoying it. What are we talking about here?
Right.
Could I please remind everyone here that I'm an innocent man? So until you find me standing over a dead body with a knife in my hand, I think you better treat me with the rights and privileges accorded to every innocent citizen.
I like how the best that the electricity guy can do is to work as a carny, making a light bulb go on. Like, that's the best way he can use his power.
Times are tough.
Yeah, they're not that tough. I'll unscrew the light bulb. Still on. Well,
one of the things too, they were going by in the carnival scene, and there's like you see a sign that says like the amazing lady in a box.
Oh, what's in the box? What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
We talked about how this happens quite often, but the waking up and screaming and stabbing,
Yeah.
and so in this he stabs the bed and the sheets, and it's almost like done as like a comedic moment. She's like, looks like we're gonna need new sheets again, baby. Shit yourself this time.
Also, when she touches the lumberjacks and calms them down, I was expecting them to start hugging each other.
I am a lumberjack and I am okay.
There's a discussion of how much money Wolverine makes.
Yeah.
Being a lumberjack, and it's $18,000 a year.
Stryker's younger, and this is after Vietnam, so it's like it's the 70s at this point.
That money conversation is a little bit goofy. She's breaking it down. She's like, plus our medical insurance, FICA, everything else, we're not bringing anything home.
Yeah.
You're wrecking the sheets every 5 fucking minutes. I got to buy new linens.
We really got to lower the sheet budget.
The sheet budget is
can't
high.
sustain this.
Also, it's called toilet paper for a reason. You use it.
He shit everywhere! Look what he did! He shit all over the wall!
You get the typical like action movie setup of one last job, Wolverine. You know, like,
yeah, for sure.
Setup and like finding out that he set up the setup. You know. But even going up to her, holding her in arms, and no.
But that, it's become a spoof nowadays.
Yeah.
With the camera above
even
him
at
as he
this
looks
point-
up into the camera and screams no. I can't even tell you how many fucking comedies do that no thing. I want to say he almost does it in all
also
3
does
movies.
it in X-Men 3.
Yeah,
like
right.
a few times.
We talked a lot about the whole adamantium transplant on him or whatever. He runs away from the whole experiment, right? So he runs and he runs. And he gets to that barn, right? He shows up. He's naked. But let me tell you something. His hair is perfectly styled when he walks
is
into that barn.
Perfectly coiffed.
I
His
mean,
skin.
how is that possible after that escape?
He's got
He's
eyeliner
naked.
on.
Yeah.
His hair is constantly regenerating.
You're right.
And going back into the right place.
His
If it gets
hairstyle
knocked out of
actually,
style,
his
it'll-
hairstyle actually regenerates. But there's no way this naked guy shows up at these old people's houses, whether their son is dead or not, and they're like, "Come on in and eat pancakes with us."
Yeah.
They could have been swingers. We don't know. She could have been coming in there to be like, listen, we're into a certain kind of lifestyle.
No matter how good sex is, it becomes very routine. We tried to think of different ways to make it more interesting.
And I mean, he wore that leather jacket in like every other fucking movie. That leather jacket is supposed to match what he wore in the X-Men movies.
Yep.
And it's the same leather jacket. Buy another jacket.
I actually wrote, I was like, this was my son's jacket, and now it will become your signature jacket from now on. They blame Wolverine for shooting these two, the old couple.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, he just murdered two civilians with the gun he does not have. He doesn't have a gun.
Stryker's horrible at his job.
Truly.
He's not good.
Boys, please.
So we get to the fucking boxing ring where Wolverine's trying to figure out what's going on and everything, and he sees Will.I.Am, who hasn't seen him forever, and the Blob, right?
Will, he ain't.
It was originally going to be played by Quentin Rampage Jackson. So in lieu of one of the toughest MMA guys of all time, they're like, let's get an effeminate pop star to play the part. People are like, I love the songs of the Black Eyed Peas, but if I could see that guy in a fucking superhero movie, life would be complete.
Not only is it just lazy and stupid, the blob thing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, even people who have never heard of a fucking comic book knew that there was some forced thing there.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
You know what I mean? Like, don't call me the blob. No, I didn't. And I love how many lines we have to have of this, of like, shouldn't have called him a blob. I didn't call him the blob. Did you call me the blob? I didn't call you the blob.
You're just mishearing what I said. And we know that his name is going to go on to be the Blob, so why would he take a name that someone called him an insult and go by that name?
Right. Again, it's another one of these, it was a misunderstanding, and isn't that cool? No,
it's not. It completely undermines the basis of all characters.
A guy on the street called me a fat fuck. You know what my name is? Fat fuck.
That's it.
Just call me that.
He was Korean. He was selling DVDs.
He weighs a metric ton. His name, Fat Bastard.
How much does Gambit suck in this movie?
He doesn't even sound like fucking.
Yeah.
I'm Gambit. My name is Gambit. I'm a gambler.
We want the Gambit from the fucking cartoon. I think everyone can agree to that. And this guy
100%.
is fucking garbage.
But then it's just the misunderstanding of like, am I fighting you?
Right,
Are you
right.
fighting me? Am I fighting him? I ran away and came back and I have a stick now. Where did I get the stick from? Gambit has some line in that scene too. The men who took me had dog tags just like that. Like, maybe I'm just in the military. Like,
It's so stupid. There's no hidden place. It's literally people in bases visiting other people in bases and being like, where's the base I was just at?
But they forget that this is a fucking island, for God's sake. Later, the bitch is like, walk and keep walking. Well, I'm going to run into the fucking beach because I'm on a fucking island.
yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's going to run into the beach and just bounce off it like a fucking video game
It'd be
character.
fucking great if that end scene they showed him and it was just like he's completely wet, fish hanging out of his pockets and shit.
Seaweed on his ear. He's like, I kept walking.
It's an island that'll fuck your shoes up if you walk really far.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would walk 500 miles an hour.
So you find out Silver Fox is involved and that she's been involved from the beginning and her sister
is being kept captive. She turns rather quickly. He's like, you see, she was with me all along. She was in on it. And she's like, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I really...
They have my sister.
Yeah, I'm really... Like, it's supposed to be a big reveal from Stryker, and she's immediately, like, undermining him. She's like, no, I liked you. I did.
I really do like
You've got a great dick.
But it reminded me of the ending of Blade, where they undo, like, his entire reason for doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
By, like, you're like, your mother's still alive. It was the whole reason for you being a vampire hunter.
Motivation
And then
for
it's
my
like,
character.
Well, I guess
You
I
don't need
quit.
that. Exactly. It's the worst thing.
And that's how this feels. It's like,
You're
why
right.
did I do any of this?
You're right.
I hate it so fucking much.
And as an audience member, you're like, oh, and seriously, I hated all of the scenes leading up to this, and now you're telling me, and we did it for nothing.
Right.
Yep.
And then you have the thing with Silver Fox where she goes up to Sabretooth, and she tries to put in, he's like, your little mind games ain't gonna work on me. Like, what?
Why not?
Wouldn't
Why?
they? You've basically made the case that you and Wolverine are the same.
Basically equal in power.
And they worked on him.
Right.
My trick's gonna work, gonna make all the money.
You got Deadpool entering like Darth Maul.
Yes.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
big ridiculous blade coming out of his
Stupid
arm.
fucking Baraka blade.
And that fight was too easy. I mean, he was beaten too easily. If he's the toughest mutant, how is he?
And even you've got an entire
It's too much fucking shit on me.
building filled with mutants, and you're like, take all of them and go. I'll stay here and fight this thing.
And
Like,
fight the toughest mutant.
why don't they all just use their powers
Just
on
help.
him at the same time?
Right.
Like,
It would have been great because one of the last
Right.
memories he has before he gets his memory wiped is working as a team with a bunch of kids and being a mentor. And then he gets
that's
the bullet.
why he feels the draw to.
Yep.
Right. Wouldn't that have been cool?
Yes, it would have been
Nice.
cool, Phil.
Now, that would have been interesting.
Okay, so that leads us to the breakdown for the Wolverine.
I didn't send for you only to thank you, Logan. I wanted to repay you, to offer you something no one else can. I can end your eternity, make you immortal.
You offering to kill me?
No, not right away.
Nice to see you again. Sorry you got sick.
The Wolverine.
You know what? This movie would have been better if it was called Benverine, and it was just starring Benverine, a story about Benverine.
Does he have the claws?
Of course.
I think he has to.
I think he has
He's
to.
out in the mountains, like doing a traveling Zoobly Zoo.
Yeah.
And then
I'd rather watch a movie about a guy peeling a tangerine.
Yeah.
God's sakes.
Oh man.
Wolverine eats a tangerine in Wolverine.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical. Some men just want a tangerine.
So yeah, the girl comes and she makes him an offer he can't refuse. Let's go to Japan.
Yeah.
You know, Yukio has one of the most jarringly triangular faces I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, wide set eyes, her head a perfect triangle.
Yeah.
She looks bizarre.
The haircut, I feel like, accentuates it a lot.
For sure.
Absolutely.
for sure.
She's very alien in that world too because she's an outsider in that family.
Yeah.
But you're right about the haircut. I wrote, these bangs are deeply upsetting to me.
I think it's kind of odd, though, when she goes to him and sets up the whole thing and asks him to come, and he's like, no, I don't want to. You know, everything in every movie, he's always like, I don't really want to do that, and then eventually does it.
Very resistant.
Yeah. But he says to her, he's like, all right, one day I go, I visit, I go back one day. And she's like, sure, no problem. The flight is 15 hours long. I'm like, it's going to be more than a day.
I mean, really?
It's going to take it's over a day of travel there and back already.
I mean, the movie takes place over like a week. So he
like
must have
mid-air,
known.
he's going to like turn around.
They land and he's like, you've gotten your day. Time to go back.
Yeah.
There are other bears that
I'll
need
meet
me.
him in the airport.
Bring him here.
I'll meet him at the Auntie Anne's. I'm going to grab a couple of things at the duty-free shop real quick.
Auntie Anne's has established an international presence in over 20 countries around the globe. That number is growing as we've discovered that people's love for our pretzels transcends cultures.
Well, apologize to Mr. Yashin. I'm not going to Tokyo.
Well, how come when he gets to Japan and they bathe him, he resists being bathed so vehemently? Like, I get that they're bathing him,
Right,
but he's
yeah.
really like,
You stink like shit.
You know?
Kind of reminded me of the Beast getting washing Beauty and the Beast, like rough scrubbing him. Like they wash him like he's a dog.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that
sit
might,
down, get out.
that might be the idea that he's really being sort of animalized as a.
Just keeps trying to jump out of the tub the whole time. I was waiting for when they clean him up, like, you can't go in there like that. Like, here, I think I have a leather motorcycle jacket back here somewhere for you.
Perfect,
Like,
perfect. Is the collar open 3 buttons down so my hairy chest can be seen?
Yeah. He didn't always wear that in the comics. It's a movie thing.
This is where I get nerdy about jackets. He's wearing a bomber in the cartoon, but in this, it's a racer.
Yeah.
I don't imagine Wolverine purchasing anything, like going into a store and being like, well, those are kind of nice. I'll try those out. Do you have any leather jackets that have like a colored stripe?
This jacket has completely changed my life. When I leave the house in this, it's with a whole different confidence.
So the snake lady goes into his room.
Yes.
And she breathes her bad breath into his mouth.
Yeah, it's confusing what she's breathing, what she's doing.
Because he's like, oh, I guess it was just a dream. I'm off to the funeral. Oh, there's a blonde woman who crawled on top of me. And I think it's safe to say that's
just
the same person.
Right, Phil. What was the research on that actress again?
So her name is Svetlana Svetlana.
She's got a very shiny and upsetting mole throughout this movie that really bothers me. I feel like
I found her very shiny looking overall.
Svetlana Kodchenkova, and she is an honorary artist of Russia. So Ophelia Sarkeesian is the name of the supervillain that she plays, who is a comic book character that was created by Jim Steranko for Captain America.
But you're telling the mole has nothing to do with her powers. It's just a woman's mole.
She can make it larger and smaller at will.
Wasn't she in the movie Dodgeball, the world's most powerful dodgeball thrower from Eastern Europe?
I think Missy Pyle was playing her. I think that's what was happening.
Yeah.
But she's married to Seagal, is what you're telling me.
Maybe it's not me. Maybe I gave it a mole.
So the bullet train was really something.
Oh, love the bullet train.
I was surprised the other guy was able to keep up with him so well, honestly, because Wolverine's got the claws. That
he can just kind of anchor himself whenever he needs to.
Pull himself
It's
up.
the henchman rule. They're always as capable as they are up to the point they get killed.
Right. Yeah.
They can only be so good until he stabs them.
I would say that train battle was a bit reminiscent of the fight in the Raimi Spider-Man where they're trying to save the subway, and it's...
Trains are great set pieces.
I love... put somebody on a moving object, have them try to stay on the moving object while fighting another person on the moving object. Beautiful.
It made me think of like every fight on a train you've ever seen. Like the first Mission Impossible, and the tunnel, and Speed at the end.
And also the Great Train Robbery.
Knocks his head off. Dennis Hopper's head goes flying.
They're always trying to figure out a way of getting from inside the train to the top of the train. We can't fight inside this train. We've got to get on top of it. Where it's much more dangerous and impractical.
Right.
We have to.
So on the train scene, he sees the guys and he's like, oh, Yakuza. And they start to go. I'm like, what made you think they were Yakuza and not just, a random group of Japanese guys? Are you sure you're not just a racist? And could be like the train conductor coming to get your ticket. You're like, Yakuza.
Just any haughty Japanese man he thinks is Yakuza. I just want your ticket. You don't have a ticket? I'm not happy.
Yeah, get off the train.
You're Yakuza.
You must be a Yakuza, huh?
Oh, shit. Yakuza. Huh? Go. Oh, shit.
So they get off the fucking train and they're hiding, Logan and
Mariko.
Yeah. And they go to that sexually themed hotel to hide where like every room has got a theme.
Yeah.
And okay, so I could appreciate some of them. There's one that's like a dungeon. It's like a, S&M.
Yeah, a couple of classic ones.
Right. But then they picked the Mars room. Who the fuck would want to fuck on Mars?
Did they pick the Mars room, or was it like catered to them? Was it curated?
They're perverse in Japan with their sexual shit, though.
Oh yeah, they
I mean,
love the
they're dirty.
tentacles.
Yeah,
well, it's
they're
because there
dirty.
was a puritanical ban on porn between two people, so they had to find alternate means of that sort of intercourse. And so that's kind of how the hentai stuff.
The tentacle stuff.
Yep.
Tell us more about the history of pornography in Japan, Phil.
They have vending machines with used underwear.
I've heard that. It is weird because a vending machine is a convenience issue, right? So you need something quickly.
Quick, I need used underwear.
Right.
Of a woman.
So you're in Japan. You need to masturbate now. So you say to yourself, I got to get a pair of soiled underwear.
Yeah.
Boom, vending machine.
Yep.
And you have it.
Today's episode is sponsored by Vending Machine Underwear. It's a hit in Japan.
But it's constant in this fucking movie with Jean Grey.
Yeah.
He's with Jean Grey and she's
a little
talking to
much.
him. It's ridiculous. At the end, she's like, we're waiting for you here.
Where?
Wait, mutant heaven? Where the fuck are you waiting for me? It's all white in the background, too. It's like the heaven from Happy Gilmore. Apollo Creed is playing the piano and Grandma's there.
Yeah. And got, what's her face coming out with the pictures of beer.
Modern Family woman with the beer. We realize that it happens right after X-Men and she died. It's the next story for Wolverine, but it's like, for God's sake, man.
And no one liked X-Men 3. Don't pretend that you do.
I did.
Vin likes it. It's
That's
a point,
weird.
It's a point of contention.
Well, get into Alkali Way.
Because I thought it was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Oh my God. It makes me gross.
I like the scene where she's breaking him apart and he's reassembling himself as he struggles to kill her. I don't know. I thought it was visually quite stunning.
You're a fan of Brett Ratner's oeuvre.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
God.
I like him during his dating Serena Williams phase.
Oh, yeah. I liked him during the hanging out with Roman Polanski days.
Yeah, same phase.
I liked him during the having to cater a party in which he was a guest phase and seeing his very young, very tiny girlfriend with him.
That Brett Ratner? He's a master at comedic action adventure. A master at storytelling. He's just a master at making movies in general. I'm gonna say it. He's the new Spielberg.
You're a bad person.
There was at some point, I don't recall the fight, and Wolverine yells, "Don't hit my friends!" What?
Did you say friends?
I believe we're at the part when he's like storming the house or whatever.
Again, yeah.
The village.
They're attacking him with arrows, but there's no way that they would go deep enough. Like, especially if you showed him like getting hit in the arm, I'm like, there's bone there. It would bounce right off because you have adamantium.
I think it's quite a striking image, frankly, in the movie, actually.
That's the thing. It looks good.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
It's reminiscent of the guy getting torn apart in Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Where all the hooks are hooking onto him and he's ripped apart.
Yeah. It's funny you went there because the first thing I thought of was Ace Ventura 2 when he's getting shot with all the darts.
3 darts is too much.
He's like a marionette. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I got a marionette as a gift and I thought it would be the greatest thing. And I mean, they get tangled up in 5 fucking seconds.
Yeah.
You can never keep a marionette.
You can't
good.
put them down because you pick them back up. Well,
thank you.
You got to keep them hung in a certain way so they don't spin around.
I'm like, the stories I will create with this. My mother drug a marionette back to fucking United States for a Mexican vacation for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, fucking 5 seconds after I got it, I was like, well, this is ruined. It's destroyed.
I'm not going to untie
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm 8.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do here?
I don't have the finger dexterity for this.
I know. Once they hack the robot's head off, when you see the old man whose head is at the level beneath where the head of the robot is.
Yeah.
It's like he's wearing a mascot costume.
You know what I mean? That's how it goes. He's seeing through the mouth over here.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what it is.
God damn, it is so hot in here.
I can't breathe in this thing.
There's a scene where after he saves him from the nuclear bomb, he tries to give him his sword.
Why don't you hold on to it for me?
Yeah.
I don't want your sword.
I've got powers.
Yeah.
I don't need your sword.
I have 6 swords in my hands.
Yes.
I don't need
I'm
your fucking sword,
I'm a wandering
man.
vagabond. Why, I gotta carry a big sword around now?
I don't want your fucking sword.
You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe.
I don't want these.
And that takes us to the third movie. Gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about
Logan.
Jeez, Wolverine, seeing you like this just breaks my damn heart.
As soon as I rip it out of your chest, fucks me.
We have some trilogy superstars in this one, guys. We have, of course, the girl that plays the daughter is a trilogy superstar because she makes a return in Deadpool. Daphne Keane, I believe is her name.
Yes.
All right. You've got Stephen Merchant, our old friend Stephen Merchant, who plays Caliban, trilogy superstar. 3 Flavors Cornetto trilogy.
That's
The one
right.
who calls about the swan.
Yep. And the guy that plays Dr. Rice in this movie, his name is Richard Grant. He was in the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
And he's also a double Marvel guy.
Everything proceeded correctly my entire life until Thanos attacked our ship.
You didn't try to stab him?
Certainly not. But blades are worthless in the face of a Loki sorcery.
I like that first scene because I feel like we got to see his berserker rage immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, with
He
that
just
guy with
tease
the-
off on those guys who, just
cool.
fucked with the wrong guy, essentially.
cool.
Yep.
I love that in movies. You always have that gang of guys who's just like, nah, SA, I'm going to say this. And
We're
do
here
like,
to start trouble,
like,
bro.
come on, man, just walk away. There's really no reason to do this.
we're gonna do this.
And they never like read the cues.
Nice necklace. I got one just like it made out of noses.
When Professor X is having his first little senile mental breakdown in the silo and he's just babbling and talking.
Yeah.
He's obviously quoting back a commercial, a Taco Bell commercial. And one of the things he quotes is new chalupa. A chalupa isn't from 2029.
It was
I could buy one now.
It was a huge day when chalupas hit the scene for Charles Xavier.
He's never forgotten.
Oh
He's never forgotten. He probably had a great first chalupa.
You
and
think that's it? Because I thought he was quoting a recent commercial that he had seen, but you're telling me he's remembering an old
perhaps
commercial.
he put on Cerebro. Yeah.
Bread is so soft.
When he put on Cerebro that day to find mutants, he found that they were all thinking about chalupas. And he was like, well, I must try it then.
I like it with the steak. Supreme.
That must be, product placement.
Did you have chalupas for dinner that night?
I did. After I stopped crying, I went and got chalupas.
Tonight, I'll be eating
The new quesalupa from Taco Bell.
with extra tomatoes.
The one thing about this movie that I found really jarring but also satisfying was the violence.
I wrote cursing and gore. Yay!
Yeah,
No, for sure. The fact
right
that,
away.
this had to be an R.
Yeah.
You can't, that was a real smart move.
I think that was always the criticism of any of the X-Men movies or the early Wolverine movies is like, you never get to see him like stab somebody.
You're
really.
right.
And I think it's X2 where they...
the mansion fight.
Yeah, the mansion fight where they're using flashlights in front of the camera every time he swipes and just, a light. And
right.
They're let me fucking see him cut a guy.
We've said it before. The flaw of a hero having a stabbing or cutting weapon is that in kids' movies, you can't show it.
Right.
We mentioned it during Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Half of their weapons are stabbing and cutting weapons, and they don't use them. They use the butt end of it.
Right.
They hit you on the head with
They
the
didn't
handle.
really use him in the cartoon either.
Yeah, so don't fucking pick that weapon or change it or do something. I mean, I know you can't change Wolverine, but don't cop out. Make it a fucking R. What are we doing here?
Right.
And it worked for this one.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted rated R was yes, it makes it easier to make bloody. But there's also something else, which is that when a film is rated R, the studio knows that it's not for children.
The one guy, I wrote his name down in my notes as Golden Tooth, because he had the golden tooth.
I couldn't think of one thing I've seen that guy in.
Yeah.
And usually I'm
Some
pretty good
stuff.
at like eventually being like, oh, you know what? He was in this. But he was like no person I've ever seen. It looked like no person who has ever lived or died.
He actually doesn't exist.
Or has ever existed.
He is here to tell us more about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and his all-new crime drama series, Justified City Prime Evil. Please help us welcome Boyd Holbrook.
So Golden Tooth is down, and they're like, here, Caliban, where your power is to not have good powers and not be allowed to be in the sun, you go handle this whole problem. Drive through the hot sun in your lady's sun hat and bury Golden Tooth. Like, what did you think was going to happen here? This is the worst plan imaginable.
He literally says, too, like, what if he wakes up and he's like, do it fast or whatever.
Yeah, well,
gives him a gun or something, and he immediately gets the drop on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
You really thought he
character-
came alone?
Thank
He didn't
you.
have backup waiting? Like,
And they know that guy's enhanced in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, he's just going to go down. Yeah, he's dead now. So what are you talking about?
Right.
You asked me to help you, and God knows I've tried, but I can't help you, Logan, not really.
They get to the casino and they're watching the movie Shane, okay?
Yeah.
And Xavier's like, oh, it's a movie that's 100 years old. No, it's not 100 years old. It's 76 years old.
But it is.
It's 2029.
Still, it's
76.
It's 2029, and that's 76 years since Shane was made. So,
Yeah.
This movie's almost
It
100
is
years
the first
old.
movie he saw in a theater, Patrick Stewart.
Is that right?
Yeah, so that's kind of a...
Oh, really?
Yeah, slightly autobiographical.
Whenever I hear
line.
Shane, I think of that scene where Spider gets shot in the foot and they're in a
Oh,
Goodfellas.
yeah.
Hey, what's that movie that Bogart made?
Which one?
The one where he played a cowboy. Only the one.
The Oklahoma Kid.
Oklahoma Kid. Shane. Oklahoma Kid. That's me. I'm the Oklahoma Kid.
The movie at this point becomes a road film.
Yep.
So you just have, Xavier, Wolverine, and the kid just trying to get away from the
Holiday Road. Stop driving trucks! Fuck you, future!
I found out long ago. You get to Eric LaSalle's farm, the Soul Glow guy's farm with his family.
Yes.
And Xavier is talking to horses. He's able to do telepathy with animals too. How do you know?
Sure
when
is. Sure.
Okay,
Sure, why not?
Just saying.
I don't know. I mean, if we're able to believe that he was able to make everyone have a seizure in that casino,
I guess so.
Yeah. Suddenly it becomes the fucking Bobcat Goldthwait horse movie.
What is that movie called?
Forget what the fuck it's
Hot
called.
to Trot.
Hot to Trot.
This horse and me, we're going out there, and we're going to beat the odds. Let me tell you something about the little guy. You can only push him around and push him around until you end up backing him in the corner. And like the mighty Wolverine, sooner or later, I'm going to start gnawing my leg off.
This part of the movie, I found that the sound recording was really poor because I had to keep going to the subtitles to hear what was happening.
Oh,
This
like
is
in
when-
the quiet, like dinner scene?
Yeah, it becomes like a kitchen sink
And then-
drama.
yeah,
like
then
very.
Eric LaSalle leads him out to where he's illegally getting water from the.
Right.
I wrote this quote down because I listened to it 10 times before I had to put on the subtitles. He says, talking about the corporation, he goes, shucking their cloned up super corn. Now, on its face, that's a ridiculously written line.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's Monsanto.
You can't even come close to hearing it or understanding it.
Right.
Shucking their cloned up supercorn. What the fuck words are you putting together in that
Yeah.
sentence? You know?
I feel like they're a little too vague with because this is like another, clue to the thing that we hear from Richard E. Grant, right? That they like had changed the food and that was what bred out the mutant gene, right? So supposedly that corn is part of all that, right?
Oh, that's how it figures in?
I
Because I wondered
that
what
was
the fuck the
idea.
point of all that was.
But it's so quick and vague that you kind of like
It's
left.
this weird, like, quick.
It doesn't hit like it should.
The company's name is Canewood. Does Terry Silver own it from the Karate Kid? It's like one of those devious evil companies. You know what I mean?
What? Don't bullshit me. What do you mean you can't dump it in Borneo? Who in Borneo knows what chloride sludge is? Just do it. Do it. Call me when it's dumped.
This part of the movie, you call it the bad timing part of the movie. Because as soon as Wolverine gets to Eric LaSalle's like farmhouse, everyone's going to
Everybody's dead.
die.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that befriends or
As
likes
we've
him for
seen
1 second.
time
I know.
and time
they
again.
will all die.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you see Wolverine coming, you go the other way. I mean, even the Canewood people come at the wrong time.
Yeah.
That is the exact worst time to roll up to the farm talking about, did you steal that water from eminent domain? It's like, do you...
This guy doesn't know what you're talking about. He's a soulless kill monster.
Yeah. I don't know what month's paying you, but Canewood could start you out at 5G. A week, that is. What in
I do want to point out before we move forward with these Canewood fellows in that first scene. After they're working on the pipe before they show up, Wolverine starts getting undressed. Does it seem weird to anybody else? Like he finished working on the pipe and then he just unbuttons his shirt and he's in a tank top.
Really?
Yeah, I was like waiting for him to just like keep taking his pants off. Like, you guys better get out of here.
You want to see my corn syrup?
I'm gonna cover you in my corn syrup.
That has high fructose corn syrup in it.
And?
You know what they say about it?
Like what?
On the inside, you're sick. I can smell it.
I have some thoughts about Eden and the trip to Eden where she drives the truck for him. The obvious question is, how did she reach the pedals? She just gets behind the driver's seat and instantly drives away.
Foot claws.
Maybe.
Oh, shit. Wouldn't have hurt to see that. Would have been a cool little moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd think that Logan would have learned Spanish at 184 years. I mean...
He doesn't even know Japanese when he's supposed to.
So I'm saying, maybe if you had some hobbies, you wouldn't be so tortured. Really?
Well, okay, comic book Wolverine has a million hobbies. He goes to Madripoor when he wants to disappear and becomes a different guy called Patch where he runs a casino. He just goes wherever the fuck he wants. Yeah. This guy just mopes.
You might not know, but apparently I'm the worst, Logan.
Now, I had a lot of thoughts about Eden and the makeup of the kids at Eden. At first, I thought the kids were sort of like the Lord of the Flies kids, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then my mind went to they're like the all-kid society and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally I settled on, these are the Lost Boys from Hook.
Yep.
That's who we're looking at here, which is the worst. That's the worst of any of them, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, if it's all kids, how did they build all the towers and all the shit there?
I think that was already there.
They created that infrastructure. It was there.
I think it was there before, because Eden existed in the comic book. So.
Okay, so I thought of that too. I was like, these kids are not fucking making a log cabin.
They have superpowers, right? So,
I guess so.
I mean, they
But
can pick up heavy shit and make shit float.
I still wouldn't know how to construct a log cabin, would you?
Well,
I could cut down the wood, but would you know how to do it?
Maybe one of their powers is that they're a really good contractor.
I mean, they literally...
My mutant power is that I can lay down Spanish tile better than anyone else alive.
You wouldn't believe it.
I do inside windows.
That mortar looks a little thick, Storm. Better add some water.
I thought that the forest fight was really cool with the kids. I wish they had done more showing the kids' powers more when they're going through the forest.
Yeah.
And Wolverine takes a hit of the potion to get his powers back from him.
Yeah.
And he's powerful again. That shit lasted like 3 minutes.
Took his V.
Yeah. You know,
it didn't last very long.
Nope. Yeah.
Back to Wolverine. He's old. He can't do his thing.
He's just regular Wolverine.
And he's in trouble.
He's gonna die.
The princess is in a lab being genetically engineered. All right, guys. We have broken down the world of Wolverine. Good job. It's time now for us to reveal whether we believe that Wolverine was a successful trilogy and to give our order. All right, so who would like to go first? Phil, why don't you go this time?
I would rank it 3-2-1 for me. I like the Wolverine, but I like Logan a bit more, and I think Origins is hot trash. I think it's a successful trilogy in that you're seeing a full journey from one actor playing many different dimensions of a version of Wolverine that is now like kind of overtaken the comic image. I think Hugh Jackman is irreplaceable. I don't think he ever phoned it in.
But despite thinking that the first one was hot trash, you still think it was successful?
Yeah, I think it sticks the landing.
Well, it's easier to justify a successful trilogy that has one bad film in it if it's the first film, because you see how the trilogy improves as we go.
Yeah.
Now, Scott and I usually make it a part of our rules that if you didn't like one of the films, it's not successful. But we've broken that rule sometimes when, as a whole, the trilogy...
Well, yeah, because again, we go back and forth of like what's the definition of success. Is it, like box office success, or is it successful like you think it was cohesive, or you know what I mean?
So I think work as a story presented in 3 parts.
Right. And
That's
I think
how
there
see
are
it.
some that are just not.
Right.
Well, then those are easy to be like, no, this was unsuccessful. It was all trash.
Right.
Like, or the first one was good and the sequels were shit.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to agree with Phil and say 3-2-1 as well. The third one I think is an excellent send off. I will say about the third one that on the rewatch, I don't think it's as good as the hype made it at the time.
Sure. One of the greatest superhero movies of all time, it's sometimes called.
I mean, I would put it up there, but I don't think it's all the way. It's not at the top.
The superhero genre, despite the fact that it is kind of exhausted right now, is still relatively new. So
Right,
any benchmark is going to be surpassed.
It's evolving. The second one, the Wolverine, again, it's sort of just like misses the mark a little bit for me, but I think I really enjoy the idea of combining the samurai element with his claws and with the sort of Chinatown neo-noir detective story. I think that's really interesting, and I think the movie looks really good, and I think he's good in it. But yeah, again, I think it's always like studio involvement ends up fucking things up.
Always.
Yep.
And that leads me to the first movie, which I think is the worst one because it's just like studio trash. Like it's literally like
It's a real chalupa.
Every gag, every fucking
Don't put down the chalupa that way.
It's a real enchilito.
Now you're closer.
Now we're cooking. Yeah, no, it's all over the fucking place. And I thought the first movie is just a piece of shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, like Phil, you believe that the trilogy overcomes that rocky start. And
Yes, I will say, because I don't think the first movie is completely irredeemable, right? Because you've got the brilliant casting of Liev Schreiber. The brother dynamic, I think, works in that movie. It just seems like they're trying to do several different movies.
Right. Okay.
I do think at the end of the day, barring that, I do have to say it's successful. The fact that they made 3 movies and people were excited every single time they made one.
Okay, so we're going 3-2-1, successful from you. That's a rarity that you and Phil would go with a 3-2-1 order. That's a pretty uncommon order in the world.
It's an uncommon trilogy.
They're all 3 different kinds of movies,
Yeah.
right? And they all feel separate enough, but on the topic of Wolverine.
Right. Well, look, I definitely vehemently disagree with you, but not in a way that I think you guys are wrong. Like what you're saying. It makes plenty of sense to me. Like you've justified your opinions very well, and I think it comes down to personal taste for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I said it before that
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of a lighter, more comedic superhero movie that isn't meant to be taken seriously. So where the characters are enthusiastically fighting as opposed to ridden with angst and that's just my taste.
Right.
Okay. So for me, the order is actually going to be the exact opposite. 1, 2, 3, unsuccessful. And for me, the reason is this. All 3 of these movies do this thing where you're confused about what's going on for most of the movie. And at the end of the movie, they kind of put all the pieces together for you. The first movie, to the extent that it was confusing, by the end, when they put it all together, it made sense to me. And it felt like it was right. The second movie, when they put it all together for me, I didn't understand it still. I was still sort of baffled about who was who and what was what. There's 100 different characters. And by the third movie, when they put it all together for me, I didn't care anymore. I just wasn't interested in his story anymore. And I just felt kind of tired. And again, they're all similar to me. And there's none that I hate with a passion where I'm like, fuck this movie. We've done plenty of trilogies where I'm like, to fucking hell with this movie.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way about these. I think I would as crazy as it sounds, I would almost come close to saying they were successful because the way the character works out through the course of the 3 movies fucking works. But I'm going by our strict definition of liking all 3 movies. So, I mean, I guess I have to go 1, 2, 3. And because a lot of the movies are redeemed because the action sequences are so thrilling.
Right.
And Hugh Jackman's performance is so great. I'm going to go with unsuccessful 1, 2, 3. I know I'm in the minority, but that's just my own weird taste. You know what I mean?
No, it makes, I mean, I think the thing you find with all of these, with many trilogies, but especially like superhero trilogies, is there's like a bit of a fatigue because you kind of just do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because the characters are centrally about one thing.
Yeah, you
right?
nailed it, because that was a problem for me as well. The idea that it's all about either Wolverine getting weaker, or the notion of, once again, creating superheroes in a lab somewhere and the government sort of...
Well, that's what's tough about, I always say about the X-Men movies too, is because you can't just make 4 or 5 movies about civil rights.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it gets tiresome. Like, it was great for the first one, but then, you know, basically that's the rest of the movie is always like, oh, we're always fighting against this. Like, yeah, but take me somewhere. Like, you know, like, let's have an adventure that has nothing to do with your normal day of being like, people hate us. No, go fight someone somewhere, you know?
I would also suggest, Scott, that the trilogy is unsuccessful for me because I should be able to watch a trilogy and appreciate it fully just from watching that trilogy. And you just can't do it unless you've seen the X-Men movies. They figure too much into the plot and too much into his character. So I think that's a failing. I mean, not a failing if you've watched the movies and broadens the movie and makes it more enjoyable for you. But if you're not that guy...
I mean, but you saw his origin. You saw everything you need to know.
Exactly. Exactly. So... So again, I respect where you guys are coming from. Of course, I'm going to go in an opposite direction. But guys, what do you want from me? You got me into the Avengers, so isn't that enough? You know what I mean? You can't get me into maybe not Batman and maybe not Wolverine, but I'm ready to die for Iron Man. All right, so
fair enough,
gentlemen. This has been the Trilogy Podcast. As always, I am Vin.
I'm Scott,
and I'm Phil,
our erstwhile field correspondent, joining us for this episode. And this has been the Wolverine Trilogy, guys. We've got a great presence on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube with our YouTube Shorts, and you know, as always, we are trying to cover every trilogy ever made for all time. At the end of our lives, we will have seen every trilogy. We want to bring them to you.
You're not going to live forever like Wolverine, you know? So
if I have to cover these trilogies, Scott, I'm ready to.
Yeah?
All right? So
eating corn.
I need some bad corn.
Some Montesanto corn.
I ate some bad corn. Oh, I ate some bad corn.
Oh, no, no. You better run.